Hello and welcome to another After Effects tutorial. This is what we're gonna be doing today. I don't know if you remember that science fiction movie that came out some years ago called Battleship with Liam Neeson and Rihanna. Not the best movie ever, but it really had some cool interfaces and graphics. So we will take that as a base for our tutorial. So let's get started. So first things first, we're gonna go to After Effects, Composition, New Composition. We're gonna give it a name. We're gonna call it Main. We're gonna make sure that the width and the height 1280 720, just in order for like fast performance. Okay, so then we're gonna create another composition. We're gonna call it Grid 3000 because basically we'll make it 3000 pixels times 3000. And that's where we will have the grid. Okay, we have the main composition and now we have the grid composition. So we have two different compositions, the main one and the grid 3000, and we are going to drag grid 3000 inside the main composition. Okay, now inside the grid composition 3000, we're gonna create a new solid. We're gonna make it black, make sure it's composition size. Okay, then we create another solid. This time it's gonna be green. Now we will duplicate that solid, select it and Ctrl D is a shortcut. Now in order to change the name, we press enter and we will call it grid. Now we select that layer, go to effects, generate grid. Okay, and this is what we have. So what we have to do now is adjust the parameters. We're gonna change the size form for width slider. See the different options. So we will modify the width just to make it something like 3. Okay, and now the border to something like 1.5. And make sure to click on invert grid. Now we select the green solid layer and we change its track mate to Luma mate grid. Okay, this is something more interesting. Now we create a new adjustment layer and we call it color correction, CC. Go to effects, color correction, hue saturation. This way we will be able to change the color depending on our needs. It's up to you to decide the color you want to have. But since we are looking for the same look that the movie had, those are the parameters I use. Colorize hue 166, colorize saturation 28, and lightness -17. Now back to the main composition. We create a new composition. We call it grid 2. We drag in the main composition on top of the grid 3000 layer. So okay, on grid 2 we're gonna create a new solid. We're gonna call it grid small. Okay, we're gonna apply effect, generate grid. We will change the size form to width slider to 100 and the border to 3. Okay, so far so good. Now we will select the grid small layer, we will duplicate it, we will change its name to grid big. We select the layer, press intro, we change the name. Okay, so on the grid big effect, we will change the width to 300 and the border to 5. Okay, on off, this is what we have. So we're gonna change the color in order for you to see better. Okay, we basically have two grids, one is bigger than the other and one on top of the other, okay? Alright, back to white. In the main composition, we will change the grid blending mode to overlay. Now, and this is important, we will go to the project window, we will select grid 2 layer and we will duplicate it and we will change the name to grid blur. Okay. We will drag grid blur on top of grid 2 in the main composition. Okay. We will go inside grid blur composition and we will delete grid small layer. Now, selecting grid big, we will apply effect, blur and sharpen, fast blur to something like 8 repeat edges pixels. Okay, we go to the main composition and we take a look to what we have. So now, just in order to make the effect look cooler, we're gonna go to blending mode and change it to classic color dots, and this is what we have. It's starting to look cool. Okay. Now we will create a new composition, we will call it dots. Okay, in the main composition we will drag it on top of everything. Now inside dots composition we'll go to new layer, shape layer. Now you have to follow this process very carefully because it usually leads to misunderstandings and mistakes, and people say, oh, I don't understand this, how you did that. So just follow carefully. I'll try to do it very clearly for you to follow. So with the shape layer selected, I will go to the rectangle tool, make a double click on top of it, and automatically it will create a rectangle 1. We will open that rectangle 1 attributes, transform rectangle attributes open, and we will scale it down, in this case to something like 0.25. I know it's very small, but it will do the job. We can actually zoom in the screen in order to see it better. Now we will rotate it like 45 degrees. Now, do you see that where it says content, there is also an add button? Okay, now do you see in the right side where it says add? We're gonna make click there and hold, and we're gonna select the option repeater. Alright, so now underneath rectangle 1 in the contents we have repeater 1. And if we look in the screen, we actually have our dot has been repeated like 3 times. So by opening the repeater 1 attributes, we can see copies. By default it's 3, so we are going to increase it, and you will see how our dot is going to be repeated many times on our screen. We're going to make it 30, and the offset we're going to make it like minus 16. Yeah, I think it does the job. And the copies we're gonna increase to 32. Alright, now we're gonna get the process a little bit more complicated. Okay, now that we have repeater 1 set up, we're gonna select the content option and we're gonna add a new repeater. Okay, so now we have repeater 1 and repeater 2. Nothing seems to change, so in order to see better what is happening, I'm gonna turn off the visibility for repeater 1 and focus on repeater 2. So number of copies, I'm gonna make it 32, an offset minus 16. This is very similar to what we had before, but we're gonna change the transform repeater attributes position to 0, 100. Okay, so this is different. Now we can turn on the visibility on repeater 1 and voila, this is what we have. Repeater 1, repeater 2. So far so good. Now to the shape layer 1, we're gonna add some fast blur to it. We're gonna select effect, blur and sharpen, fast blur. And make sure you select repeat edges pixels, and the blurriness we're gonna make it up to 10. Yeah, 10 looks good. So back in the main composition, this is what we have. Okay, So we're gonna select the dot layer and change its blending mode to classic color dodge, and this is looking much better now. Now back in the dot layer, we're gonna change the name to dot 1. We're gonna duplicate that layer, okay, and what we're gonna do is modify some of the attributes. We're gonna make this dot smaller, so we'll go to transform rectangle 1 scale and we're gonna make it 0.1. Alright, I'm turning off the visibility of the dots one so we can see better what's happening. Now in repeater 1 I'm gonna modify the number of copies, 95 and minus 55. And now I'm gonna change the transform repeater attributes to position 300, 0. Okay, and on repeater 2, which I turn off visibility, I'm gonna change the number of copies to 95 and the offset to minus 68. Okay, and all together. We have to change the position to 0, 300. Okay, so we have the big dots and the small dots. You see, if we turn down the opacity of the dots 1, this is what we're having. I'm just trying to adjust the intensity of the different dots, the big ones and the small ones, so it doesn't look the same in the screen. Okay, so now in the main composition we will create a new composition called ship. We will drag on top of everything. Okay. We will go inside ship composition. We are not going to reproduce the whole animation of the ship because it will take long, and I mean this tutorial will be like 3 hours long. Instead, what we're gonna do is create a very simple animation following the same process that we will do with the ship, and I hope that it's enough self-explanatory. In case that you don't really understand what's going on, you can write me in the comments and maybe I can make a tutorial later on that, but it depends on you, like your feedback. If you feel that you really want to learn how to do the ships and the other stuff, I mean I'll try to make a tutorial on that. So first thing, we're gonna create a new solid. We're gonna call it shape ship. We're gonna take the pen tool and we are gonna drag a simple shape, something like that. And now selecting the shape ship layer, I will go to effects, generate stroke. Okay, and inside the effects window, I will adjust the brush size and I will keyframe the end so it has some sort of animation. Let's say we start at 0 in frame 0 and in second one we go like 100%. Okay, now what I did is just duplicate the shape ship layer and change its position. I'm also going to offset the keyframes. I select them and I drag them through the timeline so they don't start and end at the same moment. I will just move it around, just in order to get some sort of shape. I will repeat the same process with another duplicated shape layer. I will just select it, duplicate it, place it in another part of the composition. I will select it, move it around. Select the keyframes and offset them. I can even rotate it. I mean, just like trying to do something has some shape. So now in the main composition, you will see that we are not able to see anything but those shapes. They also look very big on the screen. So what I will do is like turn off the visibility for all the layers but grid 3000, which I will duplicate and I will call it grid matte, okay, which I will place on top of everything, and I will change the track made for ship layer to Luma mate. And we are starting to get something more interesting. And inside of grid mate composition, we will turn off the color correction adjustment layer and we will change the color of the solids to white. Just by going to layer, solid settings, we select the color and we change it to white. So this is what we are having so far in the main composition. So now make sure to change the ship layer to Luma invert mate, not to Luma mate as we had it before. Okay? Now we will go to project window and we will duplicate the ship composition and call it ship blur. We will place it on top of everything and then we will duplicate the grid mate composition, which we will place again on top of the ship blur. Now we will select the ship blur composition layer and we will change it to Luma invert mate. Now we have to go to the ship blur composition. We will create a new adjustment layer, call it blur. Effect, shape, blur and sharpen, and we'll add some blur to it. Repeat edges pixel selected. If you feel like you can change the ship blur blending mode layer to screen, it's up to you if you think it looks better. What we have to do now is scale down those graphics, the ship that we brought in, I mean those sort of animated shapes, because it looks horrible, like so big. So we'll go inside ship composition, we'll go to layer, new null object, and we will parent all the other layers to the null object, okay? So now whatever thing we do to the null object, it will affect the layers that are parented to it. So we're gonna scale down the null object to maybe 25. We will go to the ship blur composition and we will repeat the process like new solid. We will parent all the layers to it and we will scale the null to 25, okay? It looks a little bit nicer. So let's see what we have so far with the animation. I mean, remember that this animation we created is just in order to save time, but any sort of animation that you have, motions, graphics appearing on the screen, text, whatever, should be applied the same kind of process. Now another thing we can try to do, we'll go to the main composition and we will create a new composition called noise that we will drag on top of everything. We will go inside noise composition, create a new solid, make it black, we'll call it noise. We will create a new adjustment layer called FX noise. Now we go to Effects, Noise and Grain, Fractal Noise. We will use fractal noise in order to create something that visually breaks the monotony of the flat screen. So we'll go to Fractal, adjust the attributes. And after we have something like that on the screen, we'll go to Effects, Blur and Sharpen and add some fast blur to it. Okay, so back in the main composition, this is what we have, so we will have to change the blending mode from that layer to something more interesting. We might have to readjust some of the fractal noise parameters if we don't like what we have. Scale it down, scale it up. But basically the main problem here comes from the blending mode. I have it to a screen and I'll have to change it to something more appealing. In this case, classic color dodge. Okay, let's see if we can appreciate what's happening with that. You see it's like very subtle, but it's there. It's up to you to find the level of intensity that you want, but it's clear that the fractal noise is adding something more interesting visually than having it flat. Okay, so now time to just like polish everything. We will create a new adjustment layer. We'll call it Glow plus Color Correction. Since it's an adjustment layer, it will affect everything underneath it. So we'll select the layer, Effects, Stylize, Glow, and voila, like ooh, just by default something like very intense on the screen. So we need to adjust a little bit the glow first. Okay, maybe it's just about playing around with the parameters and you find what you like it better. 53 for the threshold, maybe it's a good starting point. Then the glow radius, then the glow intensity, and I will not touch anything else so far. I think like we are in the right direction with something like this. Now we go to, in the same layer, color correction, color balance, and that will allow me to adjust a little bit of that color. Once again, it's about playing with it if you don't have any color reference. Since I have a color that I want to achieve, because I have a reference, I already play a little bit before and those are the parameters I got. 0, 31, 35, 0, 36, 26, 0, 34 and 23. And very important to click on Preserve Luminosity. And voila, this is what we have. It looks a little bit intense, but okay, let's see what we can achieve after we apply more things on it. So we will create a new adjustment layer, okay, because we are not done yet. We will call it Magic Palette because, yeah, at this point, like, I mean, the fastest way to go is just select like Magic Palette, okay, and they have like some presets over there that work very fine. If not, if you don't have Magic Palette and you don't have any idea how to achieve the same looks, I mean, you can do the same thing in After Effects, it takes longer, and once again, it will make the tutorial like 3 hours long. Just write in the comments and let me know, and maybe we can try to make a tutorial like explaining those basic steps on how to achieve similar results, okay? So let's go to Magic Palette, we click on Edit, and this is what we have by default. So we're gonna go to Tools, okay, and on Tools I'm gonna select Lens, Distortion Lens, and you notice what it does. It's actually like distorting the image. You know, in After Effects we have similar effects that will allow us to have this same result. Then we will also add edge softness and chromatic aberration that we will not use here. I'm just dragging it, although we are not going to use it because those are the basic tools we are going to manipulate. So lens distortion, I'm gonna adjust the parameters. On the right top we have distortion. You know, I don't want it to look like very distorted, but it's up to you. Imagine you're looking or you're placing these effects in these all monitors or all TVs that they are not flat. Maybe you want to have some sort of distortion. It depends on where you're going to use this visual effect. Okay, now we'll select the edge softness. We will adjust a little bit the parameters. This is just a try and error, like just trying to fit something that you like. Notice how I disable like the chromatic aberration tool, okay, because I'm not gonna use it in this layer. I mean, I actually didn't have any need to drag it on, but I just drag it just in order for you to see like that you can do that. So now this is what we have so far. Okay, it's looking pretty cool. Now in the same layer, I'm going to apply another magic palette look. Magic palette suite. Magic palette looks, edit. I'm gonna go to tools and I'm gonna use the chromatic aberration. So by default it's everything at zeros. So what I'm gonna do is modify the parameters in order to get something that gives me the feel that I'm looking through thick glass. You know, like if it wasn't very thick all monitor. So let's see what we have so far. Okay. Now this will be the basic process to achieve something similar to the Battleship look. I made a very simple animation, you know, for the ships, but you can create any kind of like ship, like dots animated or whatever you want to do, and just drag it like following the same process we did for this simple animation, and it will fit perfectly, especially if it has many random colors. Another tip is that if you want to get full advantage of the colors, just make sure you are working on 16 bits instead of 8. You know, you'll get the full range. You will get a bigger range of colors and it will look nicer. Oh, basically I forgot to make a vignette and adjust the curve, so hold on, we are not finished yet. Oops, sorry, my fault. So we're gonna create a new adjustment layer. Okay, we're gonna call it Vic from Vignette. So basically, I select the layer, I go to Effects, Color Correction, Curves. So I'm gonna drag the curve down so it looks darker. You see, like even by doing that, we get in a very different look and it still looks very cool. Okay, so now this is what we have now, just by making it darker. Okay, once I have that, I go to the rectangle tool and I make sure I select the ellipse tool. I make a double click on it and automatically we'll get an ellipse on the composition. Alright, so I open the mask attribute, I make sure I invert it and I soft the mask edges, and voila, this is what I have now. Okay, so I think this is all for today. I hope you find the tutorial interesting and useful. If that was the case, I will appreciate that you make a click and subscribe. Okay, and see you next video. Bye.